Hey guys, it's the Bradshaw Boys here. I'm Cory.
I'm Kevin.
This is John.
And you are about to hear another Not a Normal episode.
First of all, we want to start by saying you're welcome and thank you.
Exactly.
I want to say thank you. Thank you first.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you. First of all, also, if you've never listened to this podcast, very much thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And we hope you enjoy the podcast. And there's a lot of other great episodes for you to listen to out there. There's one with Dan Clay, a.k.a. Carrie Dragshaw.
Oh, yeah.
All the hits out there. Shanae Alexander, an Instagram influencer friend of ours. Corinne Fisher.
Allison McLean,
who's a director. Lots of good eps.
But
so, hey, thank you.
What's special about this episode?
So, yeah, that's the thank you. Now, what's the you're welcome, Kevin?
Listen, here, just a little behind the scenes of what it's like to book people to give us hours upon hours of their time traveling and talking to us, all for zero money. Literally, anytime anyone does a podcast, they just lose things. All they gain is the happiness of maybe participating in a project. And we send out so many emails, so many texts trying to get people on here. This is like 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
We message this guy all the time. We've talked to so many people from Sex and the City, and this is the first regular cast member that we've gotten on the podcast. You've seen it in the episode notes. We're talking to the brilliant, the great Ben Weber, Skipper motherfucking Johnston.
That's right. Miranda's first boyfriend that we knew of. Yeah.
Not just a stud horse.
No,
not just a private stud horse.
No.
Yeah, not just a private stud horse. Yeah, so much more than that. And we were super excited to talk to him, and he couldn't have been more delightful.
He delivered.
He really delivered.
He was like Skipper if Skipper were completely happy and fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no...
because Skipper was always like a little stressed out.
Yeah, it was just like, he was so happy to talk. As you'll hear, like, he's just like waiting to pick his son up from basketball, so happy to chat about everything.
Yeah.
And then picks his son up from basketball.
Yeah,
which is great. He completes the transaction.
He actually picks his son up. So he's a good father in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
There's also this thing of like doing an interview, like it's something we've like learned how to do, and there is something that you realize that there is like a talent to like great interviewing.
Yeah.
And so there's these certain points that we're like, okay, we got this person on the phone, and now we're trying to figure out how to make sure we don't fuck up the next 40 minutes. And there was a few moments in this interview that we were all just staring at each other with our jaws open, like we're like, we cannot believe what he's telling us. It's so fun and so funny.
Yeah.
Totally.
He talks about what life was like in the early stages of filming Sex and the City.
And even before he got cast. We hear some insights into the character of Skipper,
and he gives us some insane,
just the
juiciest stories with some of the cast members.
So many, there are some crazy stories about him and some cast members, and just...
Specifically, just so you don't get your hopes up, it's just...
Do you want to say who it is? We're not going to give it away.
Just imagine if you could, in your own world, create like, what would it be like if Skipper Johnston and Mr. Big hung out? We have the real fucking life version of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
And we have it as a full, like, completing the loop. We have it from back then. And then you get to finish it too. You hear about it in the early days, you hear about it in the later days. Buckle up for a great interview.
Enough of us chatting. How about we get to the call with Mr. Ben Weber?
Without further ado or adieu, ladies and gentlemen, here is the incredible actor plays Skipper Johnston in Sex and the City seasons 1 and 2, Ben Weber.
Ben Weber.
Thanks.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where 3 relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where 3 guys watch their way through Sex and the City for the first time ever, mostly. I'm Cory Cavin.
I'm Kevin James Doyle.
My name is Jon Sieber.
And we have an incredibly special episode for you. We are on the phone right now with none other than website creator and hopeless romantic Skipper Johnston, aka Ben Weber. Ben, how's it going?
Woo! Wow, I'm good. I've got goosebumps.
Oh,
So do we.
So do we. So do we.
Nobody talks about me. Nobody ever talks about me like that.
well,
That's a shame.
That is a shame.
Yeah, we're skipper heads over here.
Yeah. We're definitely big old skipper heads over here. We're very excited to talk to you today.
we've been massive. You've been so nice. We first found you and emailed you to do our live show, and it almost worked out. And so it means a lot that you gave us any time at all. But we've been Skipper fans from the beginning, and
we're not alone.
And we're not alone.
There's a big contingency of skipper heads out there.
Here'd be the first thing we'd want to ask about, because we're all actors as well. Is like, when were you living in New York at the time, and what was the process like?
Yeah.
The audition process, or how you got into the show.
And also just take us through real quick, where you were in your life. Was this one of your first roles, or how did the whole thing come about?
Yeah, so it was mid to late 90s when I started acting in New York. I had done kind of like you guys. I had a comedy background. I was working at this place that's not there anymore, called the Boston Comedy Club.
Oh, yeah.
And I got an agent and a manager through doing stand-up who wanted to work with me as an actor. And I was like, great, this is awesome. I'm freezing my ass off handing out flyers in Greenwich Village, so I could do a show for 2 minutes, for two people.
Yeah.
I got an agent and I started going out for stuff. And one of the first things I went out for was Spin City, I think. And that was a big deal at the time, because Michael J. Fox was doing a half hour. And that was pretty exciting. It was oh my gosh, they're really interested in me for one of the parts in the mayor's office or whatever. I think it was a speechwriter or something. Yeah, and I came kind of close on that, and then that was cool. It was all sort of new to me. I just had no idea how it all worked. So when HBO came along and they were like, oh, we're doing original programming, it was a little bit of a disconnect. It was what? This network that has no track record whatsoever is going to start making their own shows. Okay. And so I don't remember being nervous or that, I think I went in and read for the producers. I went in for the first meeting. I don't remember the first call, but I remember reading for Darren Star and those guys the second time. And I was like, I don't even know what this is. I don't even know if I should be getting nervous. Am I supposed to be nervous for this? And it was fine. The meeting was actually kind of great. And I was excited, but it was definitely okay, this isn't, we had been so trained to be the network, the network pilots, that's where the money is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was almost not even on my radar. I don't know if other people have echoed that sentiment, but it was it just seems so crazy. No one had ever done this before.
Yeah.
So when I did the pilot, that was okay, it's not, it's not Friends or it's not, Scrubs, but all right, sure, let's do this weird pilot. And then I remembered the pilot aired, and I was just walking down 57th Street, and some random guy in a business suit stopped me. I'll never forget this. And he's just I saw you on television last night, and you were amazing. It was fantastic. And I, at that point, had been in New York for what felt like 5 minutes. And I was I can't believe somebody is stopping me, in New York City and telling me, I'm great. And it was just kind of took off from there.
That is amazing.
So did the recognition kind of just increase tenfold? Were you getting spotted by people regularly then at that point in New York?
Well, I mean, again, it was, so the timing is a little funny because I was just dating the woman who would eventually become my wife. Mm-hmm. And her parents were, I I had just met her parents for the first time. They are awesome, but they are super conservative Republicans.
Oh man, the plot thickens.
Want their daughter getting some actor on some show on Sex and the City on HBO about sex, and so like that was a little bit of a controversy.
Sure.
I'm glad that you two were able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were able to sort of like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of cool. And then, once I started going to we started, going to the first table read, it was Carol and Strauss was there. And, we're doing this groundbreaking, work from like word go. And it was like, oh, shit, this is really something awesome right away. And so that was pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
Were you up for the role of Skipper? Was that the only role that you read for, or did you happen to read for any other roles?
No, I didn't. They didn't bring me in for Mr. Big. They didn't bring me in for Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, you seem like a Carrie.
Weirdly. Yeah, I do. I kind of have that bounce.
Yeah.
Well, we actually did hear though. So, Cory, some fan. There's like a speculation of some fans that kind of that Steve was sort of semi-based on Skipper.
Yeah. We can we have a fan question that gets to that later.
Yeah.
That like basically someone was like
no.
Someone was like was Steve Skipper 2.0?
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of an interesting debate. It's like I don't know. We can. I read for Skipper, and it was kind of cool because my wife again was working in the tech world, like the first bubble in the late 90s.
That's amazing.
She was working at this place called tripod.com, which was like build your own homepages. So if you wanted to make an Alan McBeal homepage, you would go to tripod.com and like make your homepage.
Yeah.
And so she had one foot in the tech world, so that gave me a little bit of confidence.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Even though it's not really about the tech world.
Right.
She was a real life website creator.
She was.
And hopeless romantic.
Was there anything that went along like I know on shows sometimes they they go off someone's personality or any of their stories to like do any of the writing. Was there any of that like that happened where they said where you did something and then they wrote that into the character? Were you a really big cereal eater? Funny. Is that where that came from? Always you buying cereal?
So. I do remember hearing sort of early feedback that I was before Michael Patrick King came on. I think they were still sort of trying to find like what is this a comedy? Is it not a comedy? And Michael Patrick King had gotten his start at the Boston Comedy Club, so we kind of bonded over that a little bit. So I'm not quite sure how much. I think the show is about the ladies, and it always has been about the ladies. And so I think trying to sort of give them the venue to speak about new things every week. I think that's always the most important thing.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. I do have to say, like, I go back and look at that, and it was so great to work. There were so many great people that went through that show. But my scenes with Sarah Jessica Parker are just like, I'm just like bouncing through the roof. She has so much energy.
Yeah.
And it's so contagious. It just was really, really fun.
It's really cool. One thing that's always been interesting to me about the show and your scenes with her is that it's sort of posited that that Skipper and Carrie were friends.
Yeah.
That's I think how she met Miranda. And I don't know if that backstory is like ever necessarily explained. Did you have like a method acting thing where you were like, here's how we were friends? Did you and SJP ever talk about that?
Map it. No, we didn't really map it out or anything, but there was this kind of like, big sister, little brother, or whatever thing.
Yeah.
That I just felt with her. I was just like, oh man, she's just so. I was a little like I was an English major. Like I wasn't like an NYU-ish drama kid. Like I was just like writing jokes, doing like open mics, and so I felt a little bit like green about the fact that I didn't have Miranda's theater credits. I didn't have Kristen's experience, but I was really just sort of learning on the job. I had done some improv and some stand-up, but I was really just kind of learning on the job. And I remember the first time I showed up to set and I had to do like sort of a sex scene with Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like that terrible moment where, you get to your dressing room and there's no wardrobe and there's just a nudity waiver like on your coffee
Oh my
table.
gosh. And you're like, all right.
And I was just, yeah, okay, here we go. We got to this point.
How was that phone call with the in-laws?
Yeah.
I know, it was so bad. It was, even though it was hard. It was really hard. But what made, where I showed my like lack of experience was like when we went to go do that scene, like I couldn't remember my fucking lines. Like I was a mess.
Oh my gosh. I bet. I mean, like that is when you,
And I was,
you're just like
Yeah.
so thrown in right there. And was this the scene when you talk about that one? Was that the scene where you break up with? That wasn't where you break up with the woman.
no. That was with Catherine Grant, I believe her name was. That was the scene that I was referring to. That was just sort of like a post-coital moment with Miranda.
With Miranda.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be, like super lovey-dovey, and it was it was the first time wearing like the sock around my genitals.
Yeah.
And it was a great trial by fire.
If it makes you feel any better, we're on a phone call right now, but that's how we're all dressed right
Yes.
now. We're all just sitting here naked with the sock around our genitals.
That's how we
Yeah.
record, yeah.
That's kind of how we get into it right now. Yeah. So you're in good company.
Oh my God, you guys are the perfect intimacy coach for this.
Exactly. It's going to be okay, man.
So you mentioned the first time you got recognized after the pilot. At what point did you know the show was going to be a cultural titan? At what point did you know this was going to be a huge thing and not just a successful pilot or a successful first season of a TV show?
I just felt like the first time we did the episode about anal sex, it was just like, oh my God, like there's no like shrieking from it. It's no like it's some throwaway, like we are leaning into this. And I was like, holy shit. And the confidence, was just there from the very beginning. So it was like, I didn't have a lot to compare it to. My credits at that point were pretty short.
Yeah.
It was like I'd been to a couple of their table reads for like half-hour stuff, but you're like, they're not talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there was some other moments of being recognized that were nice. A movie that I got almost directly because of my work on Sex and the City was this movie called The Broken Hearts Club that Greg Berlanti directed with Zach Braff and Tim Olyphant and Dean Cain and Billy Porter.
Wow.
And it was a movie that we were basically like, it was Greg Berlanti's like first movie, and we were playing all of his gay West Hollywood friends. And it was like a really kind of natural, I auditioned for that. And, but I think they kind of gave me the role because they'd seen my work on Sex and the City.
Yeah.
And Greg was just a really awesome guy.
That's amazing.
And it was you guys should go, like, that's a good one. Like, it's aged really well. And I would say after Sex and the City, like, the people who say, hey, I saw you in the Broken Arts Club, and, that was really important for X, Y, and Z, like, that, that's right up there.
Yeah, the cast looks crazy. Jennifer Coolidge is also in that, and Justin Theroux and Nia Long. Like, that's a killer lineup of people. That's great.
Killer.
We're gonna have to add that to the Sex and the City movie club, where we watch movies that are connected to Sex and the City.
Yeah.
So you did so. So we're talking about you filming all the different scenes, and we have some questions about certain scenes. But before we get into that, like, what do you remember your favorite scene to film, or any stories from like your favorite scene to film on, or any remarkable stories, just from filming like some of your favorite scenes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was some, I just remember shooting, once in front of the Flatiron building. I think Paris Barkley was our director, and it was just like, it just was so fun and easy. Like, I had like 3 pages of dialogue, but like, because there was just such this positive energy for it.
Yeah.
It was just so fun and just flowed and was just awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other early directors.
And
that
actually,
were there
well,
that first season. Yeah,
you mentioned like we actually had on Allison McLean, who directed the episode with the anal sex scene you were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And she talked to us a little bit about shooting back then in New York, but like, what was it like? You guys were one of the first shows to actually shoot on location in New York, or one of the first sitcoms, I guess. And what was it like to be out shooting on the street? At that point, were people recognizing the show and recognizing you guys? You ever have anyone come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's Sex and the City"?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got to, I never went out to nightclubs. I never went out unless we were on location somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were always in some really cool place. Oh, wait, sorry. One other point of connection to the Broken Hearts Club was that Tim Olyphant and I shared a scene in like episode 3 or 4, and then he was also in Broken Hearts Club together with me. And I remember, do you guys know Tim?
Yeah. Huge fan of Deadwood and huge fan of Justified.
Yeah. I worked with him on Sex and the City. I was like, who is this asshole? And then we did Broken Hearts Club, and I was like, oh, this guy is actually awesome, and he's a family man, and he just had his first kid.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like the greatest guy ever.
Wow.
And so we became like really good friends after working not once. And then, thankfully, you let me give him a second chance.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, that's
really
great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a million, there was just so many people that went through that show.
Of course,
Russ
yeah.
Sandberg.
Well, that's what it's been like for us since we are watching it without having seen it before. And it's interesting because we're like, the amount of, we've seen like blog posts and websites that are like, here's the people that were on the show. But, like seeing like Tony Hale and Jim Gaffigan and Justin Throws on it twice and Bradley Cooper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bradley
Yeah, just
Cooper's
like-
in the scene. Yeah.
It's kind of, it's really fun to go back and watch and be like, oh my gosh. And I guess that's just what it is when there's all these people going on.
Will Arnett was on that.
Yeah, Will Arnett.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He's in that first run. There's one part you would maybe appreciate this from doing stand up in the day, but like there's one in like episode 4 or something where Todd Barry just rolls up some kegs and he's like delivering to a bar and he's like one of the interview people when they did the straight to camera interviews.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
sometimes
so
you got to
funny
deliver
because
things to a bar.
Yeah, I totally remember that.
Yeah, totally.
I did have a funny, this is not really a scene per se, but it's classic like Mr. Big Chris Noth, which is I just remember getting a van to Silver Cup Studios one morning. I don't know if it was in the morning or in the afternoon. Let's say it was in the morning. But I just remember like Chris Noth like in the van in the passenger seat, on my like shady East Village street with the Teamster. And, he picks me up and he just is like, finishes reading like a Playboy magazine and just like chucks it back at me. And he's like, here, read this, kid.
That's like life imitating art right there.
Oh,
that is amazing.
No. And he had like just been coming from whatever super exclusive club, he had just been hanging out at. And it was so funny.
Oh man, dude. That is here's is going to be the confluence of this podcast. Like we're going I can't wait for us to interview Chris Noth and ask him about that moment. And then I can't wait to do a show with all of you on it and have you guys talk about that moment. That's the goal. Like we've got your story, we got to get his story. Now we got to get the two of you together to talk about it.
And then Chris Noth is going to be like, I remember that issue. That was January 1999. There was some great.
He's like, oh yeah, that one was.
I was banging the centerfold.
That's right. He's like, yeah, that one was called Australian Barebacks. Yeah, late '90s issue. Yeah, it's great. Daisy Fuentes had an interview in it. Very hot. I don't know why I just gave him that accent, but that's hilarious.
Oh, man. I love it.
That's so funny.
So, what sort of stuff are you working on these days? Are there any projects you're working on? Or
well, so you'll be curious to hear. I just did a show with Chris Noth called the Unabomber. It came out like 2018. It was this 8-part series about Ted Kaczynski.
It was
fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, we all watched it. It was amazing.
Yeah, Chris and I got to hang out in Atlanta for like 4 months. We were down there. And it was really fun because, I tell that story, but like we didn't really like hang out and sort of party except for when we would go to like the rap parties or
Right.
something. And so there it was like kind of cool. Like we were like roommates. We were living in the same little area near the Pont City Market. We were going to the same gym every day and like hanging out late at night. And it was kind of cool. We got to actually really sort of like hang out in a way that we didn't get to do on Sex and the City and really talk about like some of the old stuff. And it was great. It was a total dream come true. Although I drank way too much.
Hey, you're
Should have focused
not surprising.
on my line. But it was a really like dream job.
That's great.
It was
And it
absolutely
was
fantastic too.
such a solid bit of TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Greg Utanis directed all like 8 episodes.
Wow.
He never slept. He was a total like he is awesome. Really, really great experience.
That's great.
Yeah. The what's your Noth's drink? We just want to get a picture. When you and Chris Noth,
And I want to get the workout too.
Yeah, let's do. What are your drinks, and then what do you guys work
What are you working out on the next
Yeah,
morning?
are you doing? You
Is
doing
it CrossFit? Is it TRX bands?
hit
Is it-
workouts?
yeah.
What are we talking? But let's go. You want to do workouts first, then drinks second?
Oh, you start with the drinks. The next
You start
day
with the drink. Start with the drinks, and then you hang over
sweat it
workout
out.
the next day. So yeah, what are the drinks first?
You're gonna kill me, but I can't remember what he drank.
That means you drank a
I
lot.
think he just drank. Yeah, we both drank a lot. I mean, he was a cigar bar guy.
Okay.
So he would always be like, come on out to the cigar bar. And I'd be like, I don't want to ruin my outfit for the entire week.
That's the most Skipper thing you've said all interview.
oh man,
He was always trying to get me to go out to these Atlanta cigar bars. And I was like, I've got 2 outfits and tops. Like,
Love it.
dude, it's so funny because I mean we feel the same way. We feel the same way that it's like it's so great to talk to you, and obviously we're all actors too. We know there's a difference between one and the other, but if I walked into like a bar in Atlanta and then just a cigar bar and then just saw you, like there's no way I'm like those are not real people. That's Mr. Big and Skipper hanging out.
If you wanted
it's like real life fan fiction in real life.
all I want is like a bunch of women in their mid 40s who are going out for like a girls' night, and they're like, one of them's like, I've really been getting into cigars. Like the Samantha of the group would do that. And then like they show up at that cigar bar, they're Sex and the City fans. They would lose their minds if they saw you guys. They would just, their heads would explode if they just walk in and they're like, we're out for a girls' night and here's Skipper
Chris,
and Big.
Every night of the week. For me, that's like once every 20,000 years.
Well then, can we do a few? Can we do?
I want to get to the workouts.
Oh yeah, we never got to the workouts. Yeah. So
What are
that's
we doing in the gym the next morning?
Workouts.
We talk about
This is
cigar bars.
funny
Yeah.
Because, we would get a little competitive in the gym, and then also like socially, going out, like who could stay out the latest. It's pretty funny. But
Amazing.
the gym was pretty. It started out with a long session on the roller pad, for both of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
We would, you got to roll out.
Got to roll it out, of course.
IT band important.
Yeah. And then I think he did some interval workouts followed by, some interval sessions on the treadmill.
Okay.
And then followed out by just like some regular workout, like some weights and stuff.
Gosh.
But it was, it was funny because I think he had been a runner for a long time and he was bummed that he couldn't run anymore. But he's still in like great shape. He's like he's an awesome worker outer.
Yeah.
Goes hard in cigar bar and hard in the gym.
Yeah.
The Noth way.
Yeah.
Should we get to some Skipper questions here?
Let's get
As
it.
you
Yeah.
saw on our Instagram, we asked some of our fans to ask us some Skipper related questions,
Yeah.
and we have a handful here.
I love it.
One that
Let's do
we thought was especially relevant right now, and we had an idea of who it might be, but we want to know the character more than anyone. Who do you think Skipper Johnston would support in the Democratic primary? Who do you think he'd throw his weight behind?
And feel free to throw a left turn if you're like Skipper's full Trump.
Yeah.
If Skipper is like if he ends up being like a super right business guy, it's fine. You know, that's what it is.
Skipper would be registering voters in a Whole Food parking lot.
There you go. Yes. He'd be canvassing
at the Park Slope Co-op.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So where would he fall in the current field of candidates right now?
I think you got to go with Mike Bloomberg. I would think, but
yeah, tech guy.
I would think he would also be. Mike Bloomberg's not. I think Elizabeth Warren or Bernie.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would just have to say if Elizabeth Warren was a former lawyer, pretty powerful woman. I don't know. She has a short little bob haircut. I wonder if there's anyone that Skipper would be reminded of by also the Cynthia Nixon, also a politician. I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like
Skipper's a tech guy. I think he would have been Yang Gang.
I'd like to roll all the candidates together into one person that looks like Cynthia Nixon.
Yeah.
Nice. That's great. Right. Well then, okay. So we have so one question that's been asked by a few people is, was Skipper only a private stud horse? Just a dial-a-fuck to Miranda or something more?
Sorry, what was the question?
That's if you listen, it is a
quote.
Tell me if you recognize this direct quote from the show. Was Skipper quote only a private stud horse? Just a dial-a-fuck to Miranda or something more? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, totally. I would say he is something more. I would think. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Right. I think Miranda had a soft spot for Skipper-like guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Steve and Skipper, like we said, cut from the same thread. Right. Yeah. She's not looking for a Mr. Big. She's looking for a nice, comfortable, cereal-eating web designer.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think right now? If you had to imagine like what Skipper would be doing in 2019, what do you think his
in 2019?
Yeah, if you had to forecast his future.
I think he'd be in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I think would have. Yeah, he would be. He would be parlaying his career as a web creator.
I feel like
social media.
I feel like there was probably a huge boon for him. Yeah. There were some people that were like, we've speculated. We're like his ship came in with the big boon. I bet he was like a pretty successful dude after that.
Absolutely.
I bet he had a tech startup and is like rolling in it.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah. Whatever he did after web creation was probably hacked by the Russians.
A lot of people want to know, how do you think Skipper and Carrie originally became friends?
Oh, that's a good question. How Skipper and Miranda originally became friends?
Carrie, because I think he was friends with Carrie first.
He was friends with Carrie first. Yeah, because you were talking about like the backstory of it earlier. Like, is there an origin story between Carrie and Skipper?
Ooh, I don't know if I know the origin story. I don't know if I felt like there was one there. Was there?
Looks like we're gonna have to do some. Some fanfic.
Yeah, do a little fanfic on that.
I think. Yeah, because I don't remember it. I just sort of felt like it was just kind of like you're already in the middle of the relationship.
Sure. You had mentioned some things, about like shooting with SJP and how she was like, just like great energy and like, and the acting of Cynthia Nixon and stuff. But like, are there any stories about any of the four women that stand out, like shooting on set stories? Is there anything that you remember that's like a interesting story or anything like that?
About shooting with the women.
Yeah.
Sorry, hang on. I got to get my son here. Okay, my son is in the car.
I got you.
I've just picked him up from basketball.
Oh, and, following in his father's footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He learned a lot. I played basketball in West 4th Street.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I need to take my son back there and get him indoctrinated.
You played, I don't know if you remember this, but your teammates were Tom Walker, Jake Lewis, Rich Stein, and Fred King.
Those are the.
Whoa! How do you find that info?
We just watched that scene again, and we just wrote all the guys' names down.
Yeah,
one of the most iconic basketball teams, I think, since the Dream Team.
Yeah, we would say since the Dream Team more than '90s Bulls.
Yeah.
Like I'd say that West Fourth crew
Especially
is,
Rich Stein.
Yeah, Rich Stein was the financial analyst.
That's so funny. There's like two things I couldn't have done in New York in the 90s. One of them was like go to a nightclub, and two was play at West 4th Street.
It's so funny. All of our listeners, like they give it, because we like hone in on all the weird guys in the show, like those like Rich Stein and stuff, and we talk about him so much, and they're like Capote Duncan is not a big character, but we talk about them.
Yeah, we talk about. Yeah, we find all the different guys in it incredibly iconic, and Skipper and Capote Duncan definitely being two of them.
Well, we don't want to keep you too long. I did want to ask you about Sex and the City 3. I know there's probably not going to be a movie, but were you ever a part of in conversation for the movies, or talked to anyone about the third movie before it kind of went off the rails?
I don't know anything about it. I would love to do. Is it too late to do the first movie?
We haven't seen it yet, so Skipper could be in it for all we know.
Right,
yeah,
I haven't seen it either. Is it too late? Because no, I don't know anything about the third movie. I would totally do it. What happened? It went off the rails?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a thing where I think there's kind of a feud between SJP. Well, there was like a supposed feud between SJP and Kim Cattrall, and there's a whole thing of like theories
it was going to happen, and then it didn't.
But I will tell you this, that like it was going to happen and then it didn't, and then there's reasons why people think it didn't happen. But there was like a plot spoiler that came out one time where they were saying that in it, Mr. Big dies of a heart attack in the shower.
In the opening scene.
In the opening scene.
Which we know is not true, because he's hitting the gym every day.
Yeah,
so.
we know that Noth is always hitting the gym, so that's not true. But I think if he did die in the shower, that's the perfect time to have Skipper be there at the funeral and be like one of Carrie's oldest friends.
Swooping in,
funeral giving some support. Yeah.
Wait a minute, you guys, we need to pitch this. We need to be writing. We got to work ahead.
Dude,
roll up your sleeves. We're staying up late tonight.
Exactly. All right.
Meet me at the cigar bar. Let's do it. We'll talk.
You're
there.
about to get an invite to a Google Doc. We're gonna write this thing. Well, we like we said, we didn't want to keep you too long, but like, so Sex and the City with your life now today, do you still get recognized? Do people still come up to you and mention things about Sex and the City? Yeah.
Yes, I just literally like 2 days ago, I was actually at a audition for something, and a woman came up to me, and she was just like, "You're amazing," and said all these nice things, and it was great. But it was like I kind of you feel sort of uncomfortable when you're at an audition for something else, and somebody says there's something nice, you're like,
sure.
I don't know. It was great. It was really nice. So yeah, people are still coming up to me and saying things all the time.
That's fantastic. And that just demonstrates, I mean, I think we all know it since we're talking about it, but Sex and the City is such an iconic, special show. It's very important to a lot of people. And I think, it's really been a hugely and widely important thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of people's lives.
And thanks for being so kind to hop on the phone with us.
Yeah.
It means so much.
Absolutely. And I am such a fan of what you guys are doing. I think it's so smart. I think the way that you're connecting, creating this whole universe of like this, like what you're doing with the Kristen, her new movie, and how you cover all that stuff. I think you guys are really funny, and it's really great. I'm gonna crow about you to the roof, from the rooftop.
Oh,
thank
you so much.
Thank you so much,
nice.
Man. Well, when we make it out to LA, we'll either work together on our new pitch, or we'll all just go to a cigar bar together.
Yeah.
And get to know each other in person.
Yeah, it'll be great. And then we'll all do like a group Zumba class the next day or something like that too. Really bring it together.
Let's definitely pencil in drunk dialing Chris Noth.
Oh my gosh.
If I could be the first,
more excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. That's great.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks so much, Ben. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Anytime. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Jon Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balon. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys, and if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.